Hello and welcome to another week of Under Center with Jake Russell. I'm your host and voice of Tiger football, Collin Sheffield. It was a bye week, so we really don't have a game to talk about this week in this segment. So we're going to talk a little bit about the first three games. We're going to kind of recap some of those and get into what this bye week was like for you guys. Your bye weeks kind of come in a third of the season periods for the most part. There's 1, 4, and then 2, but for the most part, thirds, we'll say it to keep it clean. What is these thirds? Do you kind of look at the season in thirds? That way you can kind of set up for your 3 games and then keep going, or how does that kind of function?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that probably couldn't have set up much better. You kind of just talking to our staff in our meeting this morning about how since August 1, everybody in the program has just been pedal down, full throttle, probably haven't had more than 48 hours off, for a consistent time before this past weekend. So you get the bye week. Practices. It was great. Not that it's any different, but you're not doing scout team. You're not, necessarily as scheme specific, preparing for an opponent. So it's just kind of more the pure form of football, having fun, competing, all those things. And now it's going to be a great challenge for our guy. Can we get revamped up for this, like what you said, kind of the second third of the season? And another thing I was telling the coaches is by the end of these next 4 games, the second third before our second bye week, we're going to know exactly, where we're at and if we have the destiny of all of our goals in our hand, a conference championship, going to the playoffs, all those things, or, if we don't. And that's the big goal, is to come out of these next 4 games, get to that second bye week and be able to look our players and each other in the eyes and say, everything we wanted to accomplish before the season started is right here and we control our own destiny.
Now, we start to move into a little bit of a tougher stretch. You kind of hit the road again. It was a kind of a short-lived homestand here. We have homecoming coming up this week. But after that, you go right back out on the road to guys like Cumberland, Tennessee, and then you go on the road to Faulkner for another big overnight road trip. And then you kind of sit at home for a little bit. So you're kind of excited to get back to that homestand. You get 3 good weeks at home before that last road game at Bethel, or I can't even remember who it is now, but you get to get home, but you have these road games coming up. So this third, you start to get in some pretty good football teams. You get the guys down the road at Lindsey Wilson and Georgetown College.
Yeah. Schedule, obviously, once we get into conference, is just, it's a murderer's row. It's a really tough. Our conference is the best in the nation by far right now. There's 3 teams right around that, ranked 10th in the nation. We'll play all 3 of those in the last 4 games. This week is our last non-conference game. Union College team, I know we'll get into, but is playing really good, better than they've played in a few years, and is going to be a really good test for us, specifically on the offensive side with their defense playing really well. And then we get into our conference. First 2 conference games on the road, Cumberland, Tennessee first, then Faulkner, both going to be great challenges. And then you finish this, second, third with a home game against Lindsey Wilson, which doesn't need any hype, doesn't need any extra motivation. That's the team down the road, as you've said, who's been a top 5 program in the nation for probably the last decade, won a national championship, and just hoping to really build some momentum and go into that game with a lot to play for.
So you've had first 3 games under your belt now. What have you learned from this team in your first third of your schedule?
That we can be really good. I think, we go against U-Pike the first game, and the big thing for the coaching staff was we just wanted to see if we were any good. We wanted to see where we were at. Somebody's always playing well in practice, either the offense, the defense, specific guys, because you're playing each other, right? One side or the other is going to be successful. And so everybody feels pretty good about their team coming out of fall camp. So we go into the first game against a good team. U-Pike just beat Faulkner. U-Pike's going to have a winning season this year, go have a chance to win their conference in the AAC and, possibly get into the rankings at some point this year. And, we play a great game. We dominate the game for over 3 quarters. We have a chance to win, as we've talked about the last couple weeks, is now just our team learning how to win. We did that last week. This will be another great test against an opponent, like I said, who's playing really well, who hasn't allowed a touchdown in 2 out of their 3 games on the defensive side. And again, now not just our team learning how to win, but how to prepare, practice, play, all those type of things like a championship team. The end goal of this season is to still win a conference championship.
We talked about in the bye week you're able to kind of get back to regular, fundamental football. I feel like you kind of get a chance to look at your own team a little bit more. I feel like you kind of scramble to look at your opponent a lot. but you kind of get to look back at your team and get through that. So what did you kind of figure out in strengths and weaknesses that you were kind of able to focus on this week?
Yeah, you just go back to the basic fundamentals, like you said. Heard some big coach around, or it was Mike McDaniel from the Dolphins. They played a really good first half. I think it was Sunday Night Football, and the reporter asked, what did you see out there? What made you successful? He said, I saw a lot of great technique. I saw a lot of great effort. I saw guys running to the ball. And it's so funny because that's the little stuff that we preach from day one that we tell our guys is going to make a difference on Saturdays. It's all the little things, right? Both teams are going to spend a lot of time scouting each other. I mean, Union College knows what we're going to run on Saturday for the most part. We have a pretty good idea of what they're going to run on both sides of the ball. And so it's really going to come down to those one-on-one individual matchups, who's using the best technique, who's playing with the most, uncommon effort, all those little things that can really be the difference in a win and a loss and against really good competition. We've already played a one-point game this year. We're going to play other close games this year. Around our conference every week, this weekend, Cumberland's-Reinhardt's a one-point game. So within those type of games, it's just one guy trusting, using, perfecting the technique over the course of a week that ends up being the difference on a Saturday. And that's what we were able to get back to this week and really, press into our players that this is going to be a difference maker for the rest of the year.
We got to talk about some of the bigger players throughout this season through these first 3 games. Now, what I mentioned with Coach Brown when he was on was just talking about how crazy it is that you have so many big playmakers, but it doesn't seem to really need an ego check out on the field. They're all very grounded, very well set, and they're ready to go out there and fight for somebody else to get that yardage rather than themselves. What is it like coaching a team that has that mental, just that mental?
Yeah, culture wins. So it's something that, there was this perceived notion of certain guys when I got here. Guys would come in and say, hey, this guy's a really talented player, but, he's a little selfish, his ego, his attitude, things like that. And I said, well, he hasn't been in our culture yet. So I think a lot of times when you uplift and encourage, when you put the standard and expectation and discipline on these guys that we do every single day, we are extremely tough on our players other than just football. We practice harder than anybody in the country. We're full pad, tackle football twice a week in season. People think that's crazy. I love it. I think it's a huge difference maker for us. But even off the field, we discipline our guys very tough. That goes way beyond just the game of football, but it does pay huge dividends on the football field. And we've seen guys that the people, said, well, the only thing about him is he has a little attitude issue. He has a little selfishness at times. We've seen guys thrive because we've actually put them in an environment to compete in a selfless way, in an egoless way. And it's just been great to see those guys turn that corner. And what's crazy is it usually benefits the guy themselves, and they really come into their own as a player.
Well, we'll let you take a break, and we'll step away for a quick break as well. When we come back, we'll have Coach Lewis, the Director of Football Operations here at the University, on Under Center with Jake Russell.
Woo! Come on! Go, Diane! Yeah, keep it going! Yeah! Go, honey!
If you love them enough to drive an hour to cheer them on as they get beat 11-0 in the rain, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the-right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Throw that ball, Diane! Woo! You got this!
When I got the opportunity to get her, there wasn't no choice. I told myself, I'm gonna take custody of my daughter. It's my baby. That's what we're supposed to do as men. Take care of our home, build a foundation, you know what I'm saying? Love, our money, she's my purpose. I'm here to walk with her, hold her hand until she can walk alone. Ain't nothing like being a father in this world.
Hello and welcome back to Under Center with Jake Russell. I'm your host, Collin Sheffield. Alongside me now, I have the Director of Football Operations, Coach Dom Lewis. Coach Lewis, it's a relatively new title here at Campbellsville, but we'll get into that in a second. I want to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself to the people, maybe talk about your background a little bit and kind of what brings you here.
Yeah, so I was originally born in Brooklyn, New York, raised in Atlanta, went to a really good high school football team and everything. I loved football all my life. But I always tell my players a joke saying, yeah, I was faster than everybody, but once everyone started getting 6'3" and started being able to hit me and they were just fast, I said, yeah, football is not for me. I started running track. I ran track in college and played soccer in college and kind of really got the love of sports and everything else like that. And so after I graduated, I kind of did a lot of internships and everything else. Got lucky at my old college to get hired on as assistant housing director, which let me be able to do internships all across the country. I did internship down in Atlanta at Prep Academy, Louisville, and then back in EKU. And so I've just been everywhere, just trying to get my foot in the door and everything else. And this is one of the opportunities to get my foot in the door of sports and everything.
So you were originally from Union, right? You came over to Campbellsville from Union?
Yeah.
So a little bit of familiar territory for you as well. But what maybe brought you, how does Coach Russell find you? You know, what kind of leads into you coming here?
So actually, I kind of knew Coach Russell back at Union because he was the coach there and everything else. And so I kind of knew him, but I was really good friends with another coach on the staff. And so me and him been kind of best friends. And he knew, again, all the internships I'd been doing across the states and everything else like that. And so Coach Russell came up with this idea of, hey, a lot of the bigger schools have these kind of positions to kind of help take the pressure off the coaching staff. And again, I was looking for this kind of position. One of my friends was kind of like, hey, it's kind of unorthodox at this kind of level to have this kind of position. But Coach Rush really wants to try to get this kind of position. And I kind of threw your name out there and everything else. Coach Rush kind of looked at everything I had kind of done, my resume and everything. Again, he kind of knew a little bit about me. And so we met together, instantly clicked off and everything else. And he was just like, I think this would be a great fit. And so it just 2 calls and I was ready on the car ride up to Campbellsville.
So let's get into that title a little bit. We're not used to it here, and obviously, just like you said, you know, you're not really used to seeing it at this level. So let's talk a little bit about what you do, what the day-to-day looks like for a director of football operations.
So the thing I tell everyone usually is like, the easiest way to explain it is I deal with everything that's not coaching these kids in football. Everything from their grades to travel to food to recruiting. I hope I got with recruiting with Coach Owens. Just everything. I'm not talking about from getting Gatorades, getting waters during halftime, anything that does not involve coaching them. And you wouldn't think it's that much, but again, behind the doors, it's a lot of stuff that goes on. That's kind of crazy that a lot of schools don't have this kind of position because it can be a really tolling thing on a coach to be coaching football and in charge of everything else that goes on behind the scenes of football. And so with the director of operations, a lot of the big schools, and definitely what we do here, it's just a lot of me going around making sure I'm representing Campbellsville and Coach Russell the right way in different formats so he doesn't have to. Well, he still has to do it, but he doesn't have to be in those meetings and everything else that I can go to and everything else and relate to him. And so it's just been a lot of that, a lot of calls and everything else like that. So it's been a real fun process.
Well, we were in the same meeting this morning, so I know those meetings that you're going to. And in that meeting, you were talking about, they were asking about the recruiting and what recruits would be there. And you said, you know, we've got 62, I think, on the books, and include the parents, that's 116, I believe you said. So it is a lot. And then you add on top of the roster moves, you go on the road. So Bluefield or Faulkner, you're securing hotel rooms for, 100 guys and getting the buses. So, I mean, I could fully imagine just how in-depth you have to be on a weekly basis.
Oh, 100%, yeah. Like you said, ordering the buses, ordering the hotels, the food. Again, it always gets down to the small things. Again, so it's very good for Coach Russell not to be coaching and also wondering about, okay, is the halftime food here? Is the buses here? Are this here? When he can just honestly just be like, hey, Coach Lewis, I need this, this, this. And so he can focus on the game plan and everything else. And my whole plan is just go out there and make sure that they don't have to worry about anything that's not coaching and everything.
So you've had some big city living, you've had some small town living. What have you liked being in Campbellsville here? What's been the best for you?
So far, I really love the people. Again, come from the big city in Atlanta and New York. I'm so used to big buildings, fast cars, a lot of people, and everything else. And we're here, it's like a lot more slowed down, a lot more family oriented and everything else. You know everybody. I know I go to my favorite Mexican restaurant, Pancho's. I know the people there. I know the people at Campbellsville and everything. So it's to me, it's very family oriented, very personable. And again, I really love Campbellsville for that reason.
Now we'll get to the school side of things in Campbellsville University and the team. This has been a team that was kind of brought all together, a new coaching staff with some of the old coaching staff as well, some of the older players, some of the new players, some of the transfers. What has that been like for you, watching this team kind of meld together and become one that we see out there on the field?
So actually, when I first started, my first day, I was kind of like, oh, I wonder how all these kids, KCU kids, it's Union kids, it's Campbellsville kids, and there's other transfers and freshmen. I was like, it's going to be a very hard thing to melt. That's 70% new people. They don't know each other. Everyone's trying to show why they're the big dog in the locker room. But it's actually been a very easy process for them. Again, there's been a couple bumps and everything else, just like any program with new kids meet each other. But it's just funny because they'll all come, like, there are a lot of kids come to my office and I'll look at them and be like, oh, there's 18 kids in my office right now, all from different areas. They didn't know each other August 1st, but now they're in here joking, laughing, and everything. And so it's been a really, I think with Coach Rush, he's made it a really easy process for the kids to get to know each other, really get to bond. Definitely when you go through a lot of adversity and everything else of getting to know each other, and in football camp, you get a lot of that camaraderie and everything else of like, okay, we're not that much different than each other. We might have went to different schools. You might be a freshman, I might be a senior, but we're still Campbellsville Tigers at the end of the day. And so it's been really cool to kind of see a program really being built from the first brick and everything else. Like, this is the start of everything, and this is the foundation. And so it's been really cool to see that.
How has this school, this team, how has this been different for you than perhaps maybe other spots, other positions that you've had? What's this been like in terms of transition for you?
Oh, it's been amazing. One thing I can really say that stands out by Campbellsville is the support system. Everyone's community and the school, they support each other. And that's not a knock to other schools, but you can really see the support here and everything else. A lot of times where it's like, well, I might need to do this, but it's like, I have to deal with recruits, but I have 16 other people helping me with recruits that technically isn't their job, but they're just so indulged in everything else and try to help Campbellsville athletics in the whole that they'll stop what they're doing and be like, hey, can I help do this? Can I do this? You really don't find that a lot at colleges. Everyone kind of just like, well, this is what I do. I don't branch out. Here it's like a lot of, hey, this is my title, but if you need me to help you with something, if you need me to do something, I'm here for you. And it's been a really good process with that. Definitely shout out again from academics to the recruiting and everything else. So it's been a really, really good thing.
Well, thank you, Coach Lewis, for sitting down with us. We'll let you go and get back to your busy schedule. We will step away. We'll come back for a quick break, and we'll come back and talk with head coach Jake Russell on the upcoming matchup with the Union Bulldogs here on Under Center with Jake Russell.
We are champions of character.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Worried about your friend, but don't know how to reach out?
You could say, how are you, or get a fake tattoo. You could ask with an app if it works for you. You could chat with them in VR, it's all good. If you think you should check in, yeah, you should. Whatever gets you talking.
Reach out to a friend about their mental health.
Whatever gets you talking.
Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org.
Hello and welcome back to Under Center with Jake Russell. I'm your host and voice of Tiger football, Collin Sheffield. Coach Russell, the Tigers have homecoming this week. It's always a great time around campus. The buzz is starting to build. They put the tents out on Stapp Lawn. You start getting ready for the car show, the homecoming parade. Parking starts to go down a little bit around campus. They put the cones up to block things off. But a great time and a great feeling around campus is, you know, you just have so many alumni coming back, community members getting involved with everything, and it's just a great time for football.
I can remember as a player, you know, homecoming being a big deal. We talk about it every home game, that our university, our administration, our support staff does such an amazing job making each of the 5 football home games a big event, just a rallying point for the university, a great celebration of not just our players that are here now, but all Fighting Tiger alumni, which I am, right? You know, if I wasn't coaching every year since I've graduated from playing in the program, I would have always came back for homecoming. I always watched from wherever I was at. It would be great to see some former teammates. I've already been reached out to by some alumni that are planning on being at the game, some football alumni. You know, all the pageantry with the homecoming queen and king, the homecoming parade, like you said, the car show here, which is a big deal. I always enjoy seeing all the cars around campus. Just a great thing, and honestly, just for our students as well. I saw the, you know, paper that they put out. There's a week-long series of events each night. There's some other great athletic events going on, a couple big volleyball games on campus. So it's an exciting time for the university. This is a great week. I think this is a week that our players and the students on campus need, because just like us getting into our first bye week, I mean, this is probably you're about 25% done with the semester, and some of these, you know, first-time students are getting over that homesickness. Some of our guys are really getting into the flow of being a college student athlete. And this week, where there's some fun things to do, where there's a lot of extra and pageantry around the game, just another kind of exciting boost to them that get them through, you know, a few more weeks of the semester, not only just as a football player, but on the student aspect of it as well.
So let's get into the football game, because that's what we're here for, right? Football. So Union has had a pretty good season so far. Like you mentioned, they're a good team. They're better than they have been in the past few years. They're starting to string together some big wins. They took a big win against Cumberland, Tennessee. Then they went and they played a Division II school, and that was a little tougher to do. And then they came back and they played Cumberland's Kentucky. They lost in a dogfight, 10-7. This offense they're pretty balanced, but it looks like I haven't seen any of their film, so I'm not sure if their quarterback got banged up against the D2 school, UVA Wise. But he only came in, and this quarterback that's in now, he's thrown 7 interceptions and a touchdown. What are you expecting to see from this offense?
Yeah, I think their bye week came at a perfect time, just like ours did. I think it gave them a little opportunity to be healthy. I mean, we fully expect them to be, you know, at full health, just like we are after, you know, kind of 2 weeks off here before the next game. Coach Luttrell is the guy who hired me for my first coordinating job in 2020. We went through the 2021 season, or 2020 seasons, 2021 spring that year, the COVID season together. It's taken him a few years to build the culture he wants there, and he's done a great job. He's built a program on toughness and hard work, and you can see their guys play extremely hard. They play very physical. They're going to run the ball really well. They're going to run the ball straight downhill at you. They want to out-physical you. And then also have the ability to throw the football. They've got some talented quarterbacks. They've got some talented receivers. They got some really good skill guys. They've got a pretty experienced offensive line that I think can be an advantage for them. So it's going to be a good test. Although they haven't scored a ton of points this year, they struggled just a little bit in the last couple games. They're an offense that is, you know, just kind of waiting to break out of their shell and has that ability. So our defense has got to come ready to play. Our defense has got to, you know, just be very assignment sound and got to match that physicality that they're going to show.
Now, you have offensive mind formerly from Union, Jake Metters. Do you spend a little more time with him in the film room picking apart what they've got? I'm sure, obviously, they may change up a little bit, obviously, on play signaling, but do you kind of maybe get some ideas from him, a lot of guys that he's played with and other things like that?
Maybe just a little bit of the personnel. There's guys still over there that I coached, I recruited. It'd be great to see some of those guys. Some of those guys have really stepped into their own on both sides of the ball and playing really well for Union. Jake's a good resource for that. Just asking, hey, who is this guy? Was he, with you last year? Maybe what are strengths and weaknesses if we're attacking them on defense or whatever it is. But their defense, they have a new defensive coordinator, so it's kind of a totally different thing. I was just telling our quarterbacks yesterday, a lot of times we'll go back and watch the previous year's film. I said it's really not good this week because the defense is different. And like I said, the offenses really just came into their own with that transition the last couple of years, and it finally probably looks like what they want it to look like. Really good, downhill, hard-nosed running game, setting up some opportunities in the passing game. There is a little familiarity. There kind of always seems to be with the teams in this conference, whether it's players now moving around, coaches, everything like that. But it'll be just a really good challenge overall for us.
Their defense, you mentioned how it looks completely different. They're a pretty balanced defense. They're giving up about the same mirror image in rushing and passing. So there's nothing that you could really look at stat-wise and say, okay, I think we can really pick them apart here. But this defense can get into the backfield. They have 8 sacks on the season. They have 4 interceptions, have the ability to rush the quarterback. And it's kind of been on and off on, how much time Jagger Gillis has had this season. The offensive line held up well against Pikeville. They held up well against KCU. Had a little bit of a trouble at Bluefield. He was a little more rushed. Do you anticipate that being any sort of an issue with this defense?
Yeah, they're going to bring pressure. They're going to plan on pressuring the quarterback. It's a great challenge for our offensive line. They, just like on their offensive side, their defensive side is very downhill. They're going to be extremely physical, kind of your hair on fire, play loose and fast on the defensive side. And like we've talked about, they had a shutout the first game. They honestly, the score of the second game is not indicative of how good their defense played. They gave up a couple of non-defensive touchdowns in that game, special teams, things like that. And then last game, they didn't allow a defensive touchdown. They had a pick six that was the one score Cumberland's had a goal line stand. So it's a defense that's playing really well. This is a great challenge for our offense, and we're still looking for our offense to take kind of that next big step. We've been playing well. Right statistically, which always isn't, what I love to look at. We're moving the ball well. We're putting up a lot of yards. We're scoring points. But I really want our offense to take that next step to be, super efficient and kind of almost unstoppable in the way of we can beat you with everything. Really want to see our running game take that next step and want to see our play action, RPO, all the stuff that we do build off of that. And I think, again, this week is a huge challenge and opportunity for our offensive line, our running backs, our tight ends to really step into that and kind of take this offense to that next level, a championship caliber offense, which is what we're trying to build.
Well, I'm super excited to see the game, be there on Saturday, and super excited to see you on Saturday. Good luck, Coach.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it.
The Tigers will take on the Bulldogs of Union College. Kickoff is set for 2:01 this Saturday. You can follow the action on the CU Tigers YouTube channel. You can also follow us on 88.7 The Tiger for radio coverage or on the TuneIn app at WLCU FM. I've been your host, Collin Sheffield, and thank you for tuning in to Under Center with Jake Russell.